Welcome back to another episode of The Rundown. It's good to see you again. It's myself, Joe, and Brandon right here in this Zoom call. And we got everything that you might need to know about local sports as well as Tiger baseball, all that and the like. But I got to tell you, Brandon, it's going to be a big time weekend. We got stuff to look forward to. And then next week, we got 4th of July. So there's a lot of stuff rolling around that we are very, very excited for. But Brandon, before we get into everything, I got to ask you, how have you been for this past week?
Oh, my eyes itching. My right foot is completely burnt, and I'm living the good life. That's the only way that I can put it right now. But we're hanging in there. We got some great sports for you here. The Rubber Ducks and Lumberjacks continuing their seasons, as well as we got Tiger baseball in the full swing of things, heading into July 4th and eventually at the All-Star break coming up here. And you know what that means, Joe? It means time to talk some trades, and somebody put out a report this morning, and we'll talk about it later in the episode, that didn't make me happy at all.
I think I know what report you're talking about, Brandon, and I am excited to talk about that with you because I know you got some stuff to talk about when it comes to it. But let's hop right into it, shall we? We'll start off with I was going to say Lumberjacks, but that's not even the team. We'll start with the Rubber Ducks. We'll start with the Rubber Ducks. They did some pretty solid work so far in the past little bit that we've seen them. Still kind of in that spot where they've been around that 500 mark. Brandon, you've obviously seen how they've been able to do, but in the past few days, since the 21st, I think the 19th, that was the last episode that we aired, or maybe the 20th, I think it was the day. Yeah, the 21st was the last episode that we had come out. And they have been on complete opposite side of the spectrum, doing really well with the bats, and then other games they came in and it just did not seem like they knew how to swing the bat at all. But I mean, they played Gaylord 15-5. They went on the same day to play Owen Barrett post 110. They win 15-3, and then they win against the 295 8-0. But then they're on a 3-game skid right now with only 2 runs scored across 3 games. So it's just a little bit of a situation where they just got to kind of find that identity once again. But again, that's baseball. Sometimes you find where games you just kind of have that rollover where you get that momentum from just being able to swing the bat really well. And then, just like that, snap of a finger, drop of a hat, you can have just a little bit of a struggle at the plate. But I still say they got a few more games to go. And they're at a spot now where they're still playing pretty well defensively. And you're going to have to see how they play for these next few weeks to really tell if they're going to be in this skid for a little bit longer. But I think they can just reminisce about those good days and they can have that power them through with the bats and get a little spark that they need.
Yeah, Sutherland really pitched a great game against the Ducks on Wednesday night. And we got to give, of course, a shout out to the Legion and everybody that made this possible. First game Legion baseball in Big Rapids in over 40 years. I mean, that's pretty remarkable. And they were able to play at the high school, get the community together. It sounded awesome. I wasn't able to make it myself, but I heard some great things from that game. And super, super awesome baseball in the summer, just being able to get everybody together. Unfortunately, the two not results that you were looking for in recent as opposed to the weekend, which the Bats, as you mentioned, Joe, were red hot. We saw Russell Tuff really have a great outing over the weekend. Max Hammond as well. Ty Gilschek always. But really, it was just a little bit of better pitching from Mount Pleasant, and you got to give them credit. Sutherland pitched really good in game number 1. I believe there was 2 guys in game 2 for post 110 that pitched very well. Limited the Jacks to only, I believe, or not the Jacks, the Ducks to 2 runs. See, guys, we're gonna get as confused as you are. Okay, we're trying to bear with you here, trying to cover 2 teams at once. But I think there was just a case of good pitching on the other side for post 110 and for the Ducks. Unfortunately, sometimes that's just how baseball rolls, and injuries have been a little bit for this team overall, and I think that's something, or not necessarily just for this team, but for some of the teams. But in travel baseball, you got to remember these guys haven't really taken a full break since they started baseball in March, so you got to be a little bit careful when it comes to the injuries, because the last thing you want to do is get into a situation where you're fielding less than 9 guys, because that would be basically illegal or highly ill-advised, putting yourself at a disadvantage. But this team is ready to bounce back. I know they're looking forward to this weekend, and I think this is going to be a really good outlook for this team. Would love to see some breakouts on the mound. I think especially with all those arms that they have. Obviously, they can't use them all due to some injuries from the regular season with guys like Max Hammond and Ligament, but they still have a lot of depth that can be used on the mound, and hopefully we can see some really good performances and improvement there. Bats will come. Just got to light the campfire, and sometimes You just got to be able to do that and be able to get yourself in a good position. But it's just going to take time until it gets hot. But when it does, then you'll be on the right track.
Yeah, it's one of the toughest things kind of when you get in that slump because baseball, you can get streaky, but you can never really stay as consistent as you'd really like to. And especially at this level, you get that a lot more than what you'd see kind of at the higher levels like college and stuff like that. But still, we're in a spot where we like to be. Not the best past 3 game performances, but it's a brand new weekend and it's going to be some brand new slates of games. That's going to mean just a fresh start for them. Doesn't matter if it's middle of the season or what, they're going to be sitting pretty for this upcoming weekend, and we're excited for it. And we also want to thank the community for making this just so cool. First time back for for AMS baseball. It's just back, or excuse me, American Legion baseball, and to see the support already is awesome. Now it's time for Lumberjacks. They've been kind of chilling out. They've been playing pretty solid. I know they're on a 1 game win streak. At least they're sitting second in the East standings for their league. I think they were doing pretty well against the Big Rapids Lumberjacks earlier this week. They've been doing pretty solid. The standings are up on the WBRN website, or excuse me, the schedule is up on the WBRN website, so you can see the scores from the past games if you want to. But Brent, I know you got the stats. You kind of got the lowdown of everything that's going up and down over there for the Lumberjacks. So why don't you kind of take this one away?
Well, I'm trying to get stats as we speak, but the league likes to keep it on the DL, like almost Agent Zero, Secret Service type of. There's really not a lot of stats kept on this league, at least for public viewing. I'm not sure necessarily what that's all about. But when you look at the Jacks overall, I mean, you looked at that Byron Center series. It just really looked like you looked at one game a little bit different than the next. Very typical baseball fashion of you see a 3-run win one way, and then the next game flips to a 3-run loss. So Byron Center's a good team. Obviously, you can see on the standings, all these teams really, when you look from top to bottom, very good clubs. It's really just that little bit of extra oomph that gets you from sixth to first. But I think when you look really at where the Jacks are right now, I mean, you're looking at the past couple of games, they really kind of started to get the offense rolling a little bit. Now they've kind of stagnated out just a little bit. When you looked at especially the 4 runs, 6 runs, and then they kind of go on a little bit of a cold spell against the County A's. Then you see them blow up against Kalamazoo County and the Brewers. Now they kind of went back down. So it's a roller coaster ride, man. That's just the way that it goes in baseball. So, but this will be very interesting. They'll be playing the Wyoming Nationals coming up this weekend, a team they have not played yet, and a team that is very good. Not necessarily at the top of the league, but they are a very reputable team, and there'll be some good competition for these guys coming up. And we'll just see if necessarily the bats heat up, they can start putting runs across the board, or defensively, fielding as well as pitching, they lock it down and they just prep themselves for these low-run ball games and see if they can get some more W's in the column.
Yeah, the big thing for this upcoming game against the Nationals is going to be pitching. If you go over to Home Teams Online for the Shoreline League, there's going to be kind of some basic stats that you can check out. Wyoming knows how to put points on the board. They've had 106 so far this season compared to Big Rapids 70. So quite a I wouldn't say an insane disparity of offensive talent, but still just being able to capitalize on those streaks. Nationals are going to be a tough team, but the pitching is definitely going to have to come out in droves for the Lumberjacks. I still think will be pretty solid when it comes to it. I mean, you look at the Grand Rapids Brewers, they were a team too that was just like Big Rapids in a lot of ways, and they were able to win that one by a good amount in a large margin. I mean, 16-0 and 3-0 before they played Byron Center earlier or later last week. So definitely a team that is looking to make the best of this opportunity to play the Nationals for the first time. And the Nationals, too, sitting third overall when you combine the East and West of the Shoreline League. I think Detroit Prospects and then Plymouth Rockets are the only ones ahead of them. And I think Big Rapids is sitting 4th or 5th overall, but I could be mistaken. That's just kind of like the quick glance at the record, but still a good chance for them to shock the world and get some confidence against a very good team.
Yeah, it's going to be a big opportunity for this group. And I think with the Shoreline League, especially, you see a lot of these prospects really having standouts. And I think when it comes down to really throughout the year, because you're looking at this as a full-on season, right? You're looking at spring, you're looking at summer, and then for a lot of these guys, they're collegiate players, right? So they're going right to the fall. And this is a large chunk of time to be playing baseball. And with that, there's a lot of these ups and downs and ebbs and flows, right? And you mentioned the Nationals, really good offensive team that has put up a lot of runs. We saw the Brewers kind of doing that the first 4 games of the year, 6 games of the year, And then really from there, they've kind of sputtered out and went on a little bit of a cold spell, right? Now you're starting to see some of these other teams picking up some wins, starting to get the bats going. So you see the ebbs and flows all the time. And I think especially with that offense, you see that maybe going down. And especially if you're a Lumberjacks fan, you kind of hope it goes down for this weekend so your guys can get the bats going and get some runs on the board to get ahead and get a win. But at the end of the day, this is a long-term philosophy. So you're looking at a lot of these games where, me and Joe can be sitting here and saying, well, this is a must win. This is if they want to get up the standings, I gotta sweep this weekend. You have to look at this in a long scheme, right? Because this season goes all the way up to the end of July. And not only for those guys, these guys are also starting off-season prep for their college seasons coming up in August. So it's a battle of attrition. You have to really pace yourself and be careful. So don't be surprised now at this part of the year, especially now that we got a little bit of a break coming up. You might necessarily see some guys that are going to get thrown on the mound or in different spots so these other guys can get rest and get ready for the second half, after the 4th of July break that these guys will have in the Shoreline League. So you got to be a little bit careful as far as where you were looking at in these players in their positions, because a lot of them are going to be out of town. They're going to be off their normal assignment position-wise or even pitching, and you're going to start to see more of the true best team on the field in the second half of the season. So especially for these upcoming games and maybe even the next couple games, you might see it a little bit differently. And then at the end of the year, they'll probably start picking back up, especially if standings become into play before the postseason. And then you'll start to see these teams really throwing out their best.
Yeah, they got a game or two games this weekend, June 29th and June 30th. So tomorrow and then Sunday, they're going to be playing Nationals both days, 1 p.m. and 3 p.m. Both starts at Big Rapids High School for both of those days. So head on out there, go have a good time. And maybe if you ain't got nothing playing this weekend, there's nothing better than watching America's pastime, especially in preparation for Independence Day this upcoming week. This upcoming week. I was going to say next week, but I mean, I guess it's still the same thing, so it doesn't really matter. But head on out there. Going to be a blast. We might see you if we go. That's it, though, for kind of the local stuff. We hope that they got a good week ahead of them. W's put in the column for sure. Let's move now to Tiger baseball. A lot of conversations are being had about Tiger baseball right now. And Brandon, I think the one that we got to start with is the possibility that a lot of teams are now on the horn and calling up Detroit about Tarik Skubal. They want him bad. Do you think the Tigers are going to keep him in the Old English D, or are they going to shop him out? Me personally, I hope we keep him because we got him. We still got him for a steal for how good he is with his contract. And if we give him up, I think that just keeps on the same type of mantra that a lot of the Tigers fans have been saying, that the Tigers organization does not care about winning with who we've been signing. And honestly, I need to know your thoughts and process on it, because when I saw it on my Instagram feed, I thought Brandon's got a lot to say about this. And I'm just going to let you have the floor uninterrupted for however long you want to talk, Brandon.
Oh boy. Okay. So Tarik Skubal is a fantastic baseball player, and this guy really has had a standout year so far. We saw the glimpses since he came up really in that three-way pull-up when it was him, Mr. Spencer Torkelson, and Isaac Paredes when we had him at the time. These three were really the guys that they were looking at as far as long-term guys. And I think when it comes down to it, this would be a move that I would be against if that they were to trade Tarik Skubal, and here's the reason why. Number one, this group, when it comes to the potential and the young potential that is, as well as the overall depth of this pitching staff when fully assembled, could be incredible. And I would hate to be a GM in the sense that there would be an opportunity to see such a good rotation and not give it a chance based on what other teams are giving you, when the track record of making these free agency type of moves, and obviously this would be via trade, but in the reality, what are we really going to get out of a trade like this? Are we going to get somebody that's an all-star caliber player in return? Now, if you make that argument, sure. But at the end of the day, would you be okay knowing 3 years down the road, if this team ends up going back downward, spiraling the wrong direction, knowing that you had a all-star leading and best pitcher in baseball in the American League, and you traded him during his best times when he has been very clear that he is in really not necessarily in love with Detroit, but he loves playing here. And I think that really does mean something based on what we've heard. Obviously, there's a lot of things that could go either way when it comes to this move. But the thing that irks me the most is we've never truly given the farm a chance, I feel like. We've had opportunities to do so. And obviously, I understand injuries with guys like Matt Manning and Casey Mize. There have been obviously some bumps in the road. I get it. But we've never given them a full try with all five of them in the rotation. And that's kind of what bothers me the most. And now that we're going to have a close to opportunity to get that, you add Jackson Joby to the mix when he gets back up into the doubles and triple A's very soon once he leaves West Michigan. I would be in absolute, I would just be in an irate state of mind, or knowing down the road, if I were to put myself 3 years down the road and we were in the same situation, knowing that I had a guy that could help lead you out and guarantee a win every week, and I traded him for somebody that might not necessarily be the same value for what this team needs to win right now. That's really where I'm at. And because especially we've had troubles with keeping guys, young guys, really moving consistently, the potential's always been there. You know, Cole Keith, Spencer Torkelson, the potential with these guys is through the roof. The consistency has been an issue. Now you have a guy that is consistent and that is pitching lights out. He is absolutely dialed in and has had an incredible campaign. And now you're ready to throw him into the next team's hands for a bunch of younger guys that we don't know and might very well get in this vicious cycle once again. If I was a GM in this, man, we have this. Why are we getting rid of it knowing that Tarik Skubal is having this great of a year and he can continue this onward for something that is of a chance when our chances against the lottery and against the casino have been against our hand every single time? That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you. It's because you look at it. I mean, if you think about our trades recently, it has not been solid. I mean, Javi Baez is the first one that comes to mind for a lot of people. Not fantastic. I mean, we got Mark Canha from a trade, and he's been pretty solid. One of the guys who have been one of the more kind of consistent bats in the lineup. But when you really think about what can you get for Tarik Skubal and what teams actually need pitching, you're kind of looking at the same type of situation that the Tigers are in. They don't really have too much when it comes to bats. They need a lights out pitcher to lock it down because they're only averaging maybe 3 runs a game. Yeah, sure. We've been able to kind of put up that, I think that 7 spot or maybe against Philly the other day, but still, we need to focus instead of getting rid of Tarik Skubal, who is the only type of guy to give Tigers fans any type of happiness, joy, hope about the future of this organization. And if we were to trade him away, that would just make it so that way we got nothing to look forward to. We got a abysmal offense with a pitching staff that just needs to do a little bit better. I mean, of course, you got Reese Olson, but still, when you have a depleted offensive caliber team like the Tigers have, you got to make sure that that's the first focus. Put this Tarik Skubal business behind in the rear view. Keep him in the old English D. Make sure that way he's happy. You sign him for a lot of money. You lock him in because there's obviously no sign of him slowing down. He was chucking 102, I think, in the 6th inning last time that he started. So he's got the juice. He's got the ability to have that long term, especially for the next few years. Don't even think about it, Detroit. Don't even think about even if they entertain it. I'm going to be so angry because I hope that they realize that us Tigers fans just need something to hold on to. And Tarik Skubal is that something because we're not going to be able to have a playoff run. We're not really going to have a nice hot streak or anything. People have already been giving up on the season because they've let those games slip away. We're already dropping farther and farther away from 500. We're almost double digits. If not, we already are double digits from first place in the AL Central. I mean, it's just a lot of things that are falling apart. Do not let the dumpster fire continue by trading away Tarik Skubal. It just would not make any sense.
Yeah, I will say this. Jack Flaherty will be one that will probably
He's a
feel
dog.
called, and that one makes more sense to me. When you look at Tarik Skubal, this is a kid that you obviously took a big chance on when you drafted him. You really spent a lot of time in his development, especially developing some of his off-speed pitches. And you looked at especially where his changeup has gotten to him. And I think when you look at all the hard work that's been put in, you have consistently put time and time into a project. You are in the workshop, you are spending hours and hours a day in terms of a real life or a real life comparison, to crafting just a masterpiece of an arm as he has. and you throw them away to somebody that you know when you're looking at a trade this type of a caliber, because there's no question about it that Tarik Skubal is being an all-star this year, and he will be in the running for the Cy Young, assuming, I knock on wood as I speak, assuming that he keeps up a similar trend to what we have seen in the first half of the year in the second half of the season. He might even cool off considerably to a 500 win-loss record, or I should say from that break, and he's still going to be in the low threes to high twos in ERA, which is incredible. So when you look at where he's at, this is a good opportunity for Detroit to say, here's our guy. This is a cornerstone guy that we need. Now let's build around him. Instead of now, if you were to move on from him, and obviously we don't know what kind of offers, this could be, if it's going to be like a Mookie Betts, we're like, oh, okay, sure. Yeah, we'll take Mookie Betts because he's
Yeah,
a
let's get him.
transformational superstar, right? No, but those are not the calls that they're fielding. They say that they're these huge offers and that it's obviously we can't help it. We have to take it. But even if it's 2 first-round picks, a couple rotational players, and some cash, I know that's very important, but these are still chance guys. Now, you make the argument that Tarik won't be as great next year. Sure. Okay. You make that argument. That's fine. But you at least know from the track record that it's going to be more consistent than any pitcher we've had, right? Because obviously he's dealt with some of the injuries and he's had his ups and downs. But overall, out of a lot of the pitchers, with him and Mize, those guys have stayed fairly consistent, much more consistent than a lot of our pitching has been in past. Don't make the argument that it hasn't. So you have something that is the most consistent and the best case scenario for you right now to have a guy that you can build around. I know his deal's coming up. We're going to have to pay him, but I think the city of Detroit would agree that we should pay him the money that we gave in Javi Baez's early contract, but we're going to stop there before any rants go on. That you have the opportunity to pay a guy that you know and can trust moving forward with his work ethic, with his consistency, the numbers that back it up. So I could see them fielding calls on Jack Flaherty. I think that makes more sense. He's a win now kind of guy, especially where he's at in his career, and especially kind of now where you're kind of seeing this rotation and you're starting to see the pieces put together for this Tigers lineup. I think it would make more sense to see him potentially be on the way out at the trade deadline. But I don't think it's a good idea to trade Tarik Skubal, because if that is the case, now you are taking a big risk of having to start over without a cornerstone guy. And that is exactly what we did when the greatest rotation arguably ever assembled was made back in the World Series run for this Tigers team. And the pitching ever since, yeah, you can insert how bad it's been.
2 thumbs down. And if I could put more thumbs up, I wish I could, but I cannot. That's the only thing. Last thing I'll say about it too is, like, if you are going to trade Tarik Skubal, you need to get somebody who's going to make an immediate impact. If it's going to be on offensive side, or maybe because it would have to be. You can't go on draft picks, because we've been trying to survive on our plethora of high first round draft picks because we have been so bad. And they have obviously not been paying out. I mean, obviously, Casey Mize gets injured. Can't really do much about that. But Spencer Torkelson, coming off a really big fall-off year, it's not been great. So I think it's really just making sure that you can kind of just get immediate relief and not really worry about if you won the trade maybe a year or two down the road. It's just making sure that you get what is needed right now. And yeah, we need pitching. It'll be cool. And I hope that Tarik stays and that the Tigers don't trade him away. But if we do, we need to get somebody who's going to be an immediate impact and can really spark the bats, because that is desperately, desperately what we need. But I don't know if it'll happen, and we hope not. But Brandon, thank you for once again reminding me of that incredible rotation, and then especially that incredible roster we had that Al Avila decided, I feel like, being very generous and trading away it all for nothing. And now we are left with a pretty abysmal franchise at the moment. But I never lose hope. I wear this hat almost every single episode, so you know that I rep the city and I rep this team. I wear it on my sleeve. So I'm hoping that we pick it up, because when the Tigers are good, I'm happy, you're happy, Brandon, and we're all happy.
We're all happy at the end of the day, man. And that's really, I think, what it comes down to, is keeping this team, keeping this community, keeping this city happy right now. Because I think we got the Lions that are really giving smiles everywhere, left and right. Obviously, the Wings have given us some spurts, But the other two franchises have taken a step downward, and that's what's got to be fixed, right? And I think with the Tigers, there's a little bit of a flicker of hope. You don't want to diminish it, flip the switch off, and have to try to get a different light bulb that may or may not work. That's the only comparison and metaphor that I can think of as this type of move would be. And I just would hate to see that happen, and especially for the city being against a team that has completely flipped compared to what we've seen a decade ago, and just without no hope. Because without no hope, what do you have? And I think right now it would just be too much against the city of Detroit to make a move and move Tarik Skubal when you're not necessarily going to get the same value back. But you never know. We might see a big time offer, maybe see a big time trade. Maybe we get a big bat that can help. Sure. If I would agree that there's a more need for bats as opposed to arms. And I think that is very obvious. But at the end of the day, you're going to be losing a potential guy for a cornerstone pick for this rotation moving forward. I could think of it in a similar fashion for the Lions, saying, okay, maybe a year down the road, we take calls for a guy like Jameson Williams, who has a breakout season, and to see where we can go with the future. But you don't know if you're going to have another Jameson Williams. So that's the argument I'd have there. Take what is given. Take it. Tigers, please. Scott Harris, if you're listening, I haven't listened to your podcast yet, but I'm going to, and I don't want to hear any more mentioning of Tarik Skubal on the train block. Knock it off.
Quit it. All right. You
Stop
heard
it.
Thank you
Don't
for
even think about
listening
it.
to our rants about Tiger baseball for another week, as well as an update on the local baseball scene. It's a great summer. Hopefully, you have a great rest of your week, and hopefully, you got a safe holiday week coming up as well. I don't know, Brandon, if we're going to be getting another episode out for next week, seeing with a holiday. I don't know if we'll be in the office on Friday, seeing that, it'll be cool to have an extra extended 4-day weekend, which I think we are. So I think we'll be seeing you in 2 weeks, which is the plan. But once again, thank you so much for watching. Brandon, any last little tidbits, anecdotes before we got to get out of here?
I think I've wasted all my rants, but be sure to subscribe, guys. Make sure you don't miss out on any of these episodes. Big thanks to Michigan ADAS. And stay tuned. We're going to have a new short show format coming out here towards the fall. And we're looking forward to bringing some coaches coming on the show to preview what's heading up into high school football season, which, Joe, you and I both know this town, this area lives
They
for
love it.
Friday Night Lights, and we can't wait for it.
I love me some Friday Night Lights. Let me tell you what, little chips and cheese, hot dog, and a soda while watching some high school football. There's almost nothing better. But thank you once again for tuning in to another episode. We love you, appreciate you. We'll be seeing you in 2 weeks. Have a good 4th of July. Stay safe out there.
See?